This is episode number 10 of Windows 365 Masterclass. In this episode, we are going to go through the comparison between Windows 365 versus Microsoft DevBox. First, we are going to configure Microsoft DevBox to understand how to set up, and then we are going to learn about what are the main difference between DevBox and Windows 365. Let's begin. Microsoft DevBox is a spin-off solution out of Windows 365. This is catered specifically for developers who can use to ready to code project specific dev boxes that are pre-configured and are centrally managed. Let's look at what are the prerequisites for DevBox. To use this, you need to have an Azure account and an Azure subscription with the right permissions. Make sure you are the owner or the contributor or the global administrator for creating these resources and the resource groups. To use DevBox service, you need to have the right licenses. The licenses needed are Windows 11 Enterprise or Windows 10 Enterprise. Additionally, you need Microsoft Intune and Azure AD P1. If you're already trying on an existing Azure subscription, make sure you have the right ports enabled to allow traffic through the firewall. To set up DevBox, just go to portal.azure.com. The first thing what we are going to do is we're going to go to the search box and search for dev centers. So type in dev center and select dev center from the services and click on create new dev center. So make sure you select the right subscription. If you want to choose an existing resource group, you can do that. I'm going to create a brand new resource group. I'm going to call the resource group as DevBox resource group. Click OK. Give a name for your dev center. I'm going to call it as Dev Center Standard DevBox. I'm going to pick the location as Australia East. Click next to tag. This is completely optional. Click on next to review and click on create. Alright, so the deployment is complete. So you can go to click on the resource to go to the dev center we just created. So we will come back to this later. The next step is to go and create a network connection. So for that, I'm going to go to virtual network, or you can type in virtual network on the search box and you can select virtual network as well. So click on create a new virtual network. You can very well go and select an existing VNet as well if you want. So I'm going to create a brand new one. So again, select the subscription. I'm going to select the resource group we created for the DevBox. That is DevBox resource group. Give a name for the VNet. I'm going to call it as DevBox VNet. I'm going to host in Australia East. Click next. I'm not going to enable firewall or anything like that. Click next. Address space, I'm going to retain the default address space and the default subnet. Probably I will rename the subnet name. I'm just going to call the subnet as DevBox subnet. Rest everything default. Click on save and click next, next, and click on create. And our network is created. So that's the second step. The third step is to create network connections. So type in network connections in the search box and then select the network connection from the services. So click on network connections. Here, click on create. Again, I'm going to select the subscription resource group. I'm going to pick the resource group we are using for DevBox. Give a name. I'm going to call it as DevBox network connection and select a virtual network we created. So we created the virtual network in Australia East. That is the DevBox VNet. I'm going to select that and then I'm going to select the DevBox subnet. Click on tags and click on review and click on create. So this wouldn't take more than a couple of minutes. Alright, so the network connection is also created. So if you go to resources, go to networking, you can see that the Azure Active Directory network connection is created. So there is one more architecture which is hybrid Azure AD that will allow your dev boxes to be joined to your on-prem domain controller. We are not using that. We are using Azure Active Directory join. The next step is to attach the network connection to the dev center. To do that, let's go back to the search and search for dev center. And this is the dev center we created. Click on the dev center. Under dev box configuration, click on networking. We don't have any networking at the moment, so click on add network connection. Here I'm gonna select the dev box network connection we just created. Select that, wait for the status to turn to passed or with the green signal. Till then we will wait and then we will proceed further. Anyway, while this is happening, let's go ahead and add this network. So click on add. This is going to attach this network connection to the dev center dev box we created. And I'm going to wait for this check to complete. If this fails, we will go and troubleshoot it. So I'm going to pause the video now. So you can see that the network is added successfully, but we are waiting for the status to turn on green before proceeding further. All right, so the status is passed. So now we can move on to the fourth or the fifth step. So after creating and attaching the network connection to the dev center, now we have to go and define the dev boxes. That means that we are going to create a definition that describes the image and the SKU. The SKUs are nothing but the storage on the compute that should be used by the dev boxes. So to do that, go to the dev center. So if you are not on this page, go to the search box and type in dev centers and click on dev center and select your dev center. And under dev box configuration, this time click on dev box definitions. So select that. So we don't have any definitions yet. So click on create definition, or you can click on create dev box definition here as well. So this is where you're going to provide the details. So under the name, this is where you will specify the name of the definition so that you can easily identify when you configure your dev boxes. So I'm going to name it as standard dev box. Under image, this is where you have to select an image that is going to be used as the base operating system for the dev boxes. So you have options for Windows 11 with Visual Studio installed, or Windows 10 with Visual Studio. You have enterprise editions or pro editions, etc. So I'm going to pick the latest one. If you don't want the Visual Studio images, we have gallery images as well, which has the developer optimizations already provided, which support hibernation and things like that. So I'm going to pick the Visual Studio Enterprise with Windows 11 Enterprise and Microsoft 365 apps installed. So pick the version number. I'm going to pick the latest one. Select the compute. The compute is the amount of virtual CPU and the RAM you want for your dev box. So I'm going to select the least one, which is the 8 vCPU 32 GB RAM, and select the storage capacity. So I'm going to start with 256 SSD. You can go up to 2 terabytes as well. So let's select the 256. So we have hibernation available that is under preview at the moment. And this is only supported for specific dev boxes. So I'm not going to enable it at the moment. We can test it later. And simply click on create. So most of the foundational layer for this dev center for the dev box is created. The next step is to create a project that relies on the dev center. To do that, we are still within the dev center. If you scroll down on the left hand panel, under manage, click on projects. We don't have any project at the moment, so click on create a new project. This project will enable the organization to manage team level settings, and this is going to empower development teams to self-service or self-serve their dev boxes. Again, let's create a project. So I'm going to select the same subscription resource group. I'm going to retain the one which we used so far. Give a name. This is where you're going to specify the name for the project to easily identify it. So I'm going to select the one which we created. So select the dev center standard dev box. Give a name. I'm going to call it a standard dev box. I'm going to give the same description as well. And click next to go to the dev box management. So this is where you put limits to your dev box. This will allow you to restrict how many dev boxes each developer can create in a project. So do you want to limit it or no? So I'm going to limit it at the moment. I'm going to limit it to 2 and click on review and create and click on create. DevBox project is successfully created. Let's go back to home. This time again, go to your dev center. The next step is we are going to create a DevBox pool. To do that, go to your dev center and go to under manage, click on the project which we just now created. That is the standard DevBox. So select the project and on the left hand side under the project, click on manage and under that you can find DevBox pools. So click on DevBox pools. We don't have a pool created. So this DevBox pool is a collection of DevBoxes that have similar settings. So this is going to specify the DevBox definitions and the network connection that the DevBoxes use. So we have to associate at least one pool with your project before users can create a DevBox. So click on create, give a name. I'm going to call it the standard DevBox. Select the definition and select the network connection. So we are just basically linking the project and the network connection. And what type of privilege you want to give to the dev boxes. Is it local administrator or standard user? Because I'm going to give it to a developer, I'm going to select local administrator. We have additional controls like do you want to automatically stop to save cost if in case if the developer forgot to turn off the device, do you want to automatically stop? Yes. What's the local time do you want it to be stopped at? I'm going to retain the default, it's 7 p.m. If I'm not turning on, this should automatically turn off. And I'm just ticking the confirmation to say that I have Azure hybrid usage benefit so that I get a little more discount on the licensing and click on create. Okay, our DevBox pool is successfully created. So let's go back to the pool and check. So I'm going to click on the pool. So I'm going to quickly check on the pool. So you can see that there is no issues found. There is no error. So it's successfully created. So when you deploy this pool, Azure actually checks a lot of health in the background. This is to ensure that the image and the network passes the validation criteria for the DevBoxes. The next step is to provide access to the Microsoft DevBox project. So to do that, we are going to go back to the DevBoxes. So I'm going to, Dev Center. So go to your Dev Center, select your Dev Center, and on the left hand side, scroll down under Manage, click on Projects, and select the newly created project. On the left hand side, under Overview, click on Access Control IAM. This is where we are going to provide developers access to the DevBox pool in this project. We are going to provide roles to the developers with the permissions to create, manage, and delete their own DevBoxes. So let's go and do that. So under Access Control IAM, click on Add, select Add Role Assignment. Under Role, search for Dev Center DevBox User. So you can see that over here, Dev Center DevBox User. So this provides access to create and manage DevBoxes. So I'm going to select that. Click Next. Under Members, add the required members you want to be part of this DevBox. So I'm going to select Members. I'm going to add it to the admin. And I'm going to add it to another user as well. And select and click Next and review and assign. So if you want to provide user permission to manage project, we need to add them into the Dev Center project admin role. So I'm going to go back to add role assignment. This time I'm going to select the admin role, click Next. I'm going to add admin, select and review and assign. All right, so now all the configuration needed for the dev box is being completed. Now let's look at from the developer point of view. As a developer, they can go to devbox.microsoft.com and log in. I'm going to log in as the admin user I signed in with anyways. So let me quickly zoom in. So once all the configuration is in place, the developer can use this portal to access their dev box. This portal provides the developer the ability to create their own dev boxes and to manage these dev boxes. I don't have any dev box at the moment. So click on add a dev box. So I'm gonna name my dev box. I'm gonna I'm gonna call it as development PC01. I can see that it's gonna be provisioned under the standard project, and this is gonna be provisioned in Australia East. The configuration is 8 vCPU, 32 GB RAM, and 256 GB storage. And I have a notification that this dev box will shut down at 7 p.m. every night. And there is a warning that dev box creation can take between 25 minutes to 65 minutes. And once it is provisioned, I will get an email notification when it is ready. So I'm going to click on create. So the look and feel of the card is exactly like Windows 365 Cloud PC. I can see that the dev box is getting provisioned. So I'm going to wait for some time. I'm going to pause the video. I will log back in once this is done. While that is creating, I got another idea to create one more dev box. So I'm going to create one more. If you remember, when we configured the project, I allowed the developer to create two dev boxes. I provide the limit as two. So let's anyway create one more. So I'm going to give the name as, I'm going to call it as dev box PC02. Again, of the same configuration, shut down at 7. Let's quickly create it. So now we can see that there are two dev boxes under creation. I'm not sure how long it's going to take. It looks like one of the dev box is created and the status is running. Another one is creating. So let's quickly connect to this dev box. Let's first see what are the things we can do. We can stop this dev box, restart it, delay scheduled shutdown. So the scheduled shutdown of this dev box is at 7. If I want to delay it, I can actually delay it. This is quite handy. What else can we do? We can check more information, like what's the image type, what's the SKU, things like that. If we don't want this dev box, we can delete it. So let's click on open in a browser to access it for the first time. Just like Windows 365, it is asking us, do you want connectivity to local printer, microphone, clipboard, camera, location, keyboard, etc. So we can accept the default and move on. Click on connect. Provide the password again, click on sign in. So we are connecting to the first dev box, that is dev PC01. It is logging into the Windows 11 for the first time. That's the operating system I chose. So let's see if we can find Visual Studio when we log in. Alright, so now we have signed in to our dev box for the first time. It's a Windows 11 operating system. Let's quickly check the system. Go to settings, click on about. You can check the device name. The device name is CPC admin and a random number. Let's go to Intune and find out if we can see this Cloud PC. So I'm on my Intune. Go to all devices. I'm going to quickly refresh to see if there are any changes. Let's pick it up. You can see that there are two Cloud PCs provisioned under admin name. So these two are the dev boxes PC. It is really good that it is automatically shown up in my Intune portal. So that means it is automatically enrolled to Intune as well. So then we can do certain administrative tasks like deploying apps, deploying updates, things like that. So we will look into the administrative part later. Let's go back to the DevBox PC. What else? On the left hand side on my desktop, you can see that all other apps, which is part of the template, is being installed. My dev tools and dev toolkits and everything is ready to go for me to just open up and use. So that's quite good. So how does it compare to Windows 365? You can access Windows 365 just like this, but to access Windows 365, you go to a different portal. For the dev box, you go to devbox.microsoft.com. For Windows 365, you go to windows365.microsoft.com. So let's quickly sign in to the portal. Here on the Windows 365 portal, you can see that I have two PCs, cloud PCs have signed. One is the frontline, another one is the dev box. So I didn't know that the DevBox PCs will be visible under the Windows 365 portal as well. This is quite cool. So I can access the DevBox from here as well. But I don't have that administrative option which I could do under the DevBox portal. So under DevBox portal, I could do certain things like stop, restart, delay, shutdown. For some reason, it is not available for me. I'm not sure if that is because I have this machine turned on at the moment. I'm not sure that is the reason. So let's talk about the main differences. One, to configure Windows 365, we have learned so far that it basically you buy the license and assign it to a user. You have your cloud PC ready. For the dev box, you have to go ahead and create that internal infrastructure or the technical specification within your Azure under the dev center, and you create different project, and within that project you mention different standard or the specification on how you want to create these dev boxes. You mentioned that in the pool. You mentioned about what are the configuration, things like that. Second thing is Windows 365 cloud PCs have different SKUs available. The SKUs I am talking about are these, like 2 vCPU 4 GB, or 4 vCPU 16 GB, or 8 CPU 32 GB with different uh, hard disk configuration. The dev box configuration start beyond that. So if you look at our dev box, let's click on more information. The dev box configuration starts with 8 vCPU 32 GB RAM with that configuration. So if you want a lower SKU, it's good to go to Windows 365, and it is easier to configure because all you have to do is assign that license to a user and it is immediately done. The another major difference between DevBox and Windows 365 is you don't have to shut down to save cost on Windows 365. Wherein under DevBox, to reduce cost, you have to actually turn off the machine after your certain work. Even though it is dedicated one-to-one mapping, you still have to shut down to save cost. Because to run these high power, high configuration 8 vCPU 32 GB RAM machines, it is gonna cost pretty significant in your Azure bill. So I'm not sure how much it is gonna cost. I haven't done the comparison yet. Definitely this is gonna be a significant cost in your Azure subscription. So that's how you access your dev box. So that's one way of accessing it is using your browser. Another way of accessing it is using the remote desktop tool. So you can go to App Store and download Microsoft Remote Desktop. I already have it. Let's copy this URL and let's see if we can access it from the Remote Desktop app. I'm going to my Remote Desktop app, go to Workspaces, click on Add Workspace, and provide the URL and click on Add. This is where you would have to put your username and password. I'm going to put admin at agtclab.com and I'm going to provide the password. Click on sign in. So pretty soon we should see both of the cloud PCs. I can see both the cloud PCs here. So let's see if we can connect to the cloud PC from the remote desktop. Provide the password, click on continue. All right, so we have where we left off. So I just signed into the dev box using the remote desktop client. The resolution is much better, much crisper and cleaner than how you access it from the browser. So if you are doing some production work, doing reading and some sort of a coding, I would definitely encourage to use the app rather than the browser, because in the browser the resolution or the clarity is a bit poor compared to the app. So I hope you understood how to configure DevBox and what are the main high level differences compared to Windows 365. In the next video, I'm going to make a quick comparison on Azure Virtual Desktop with Windows 365. I will see you on the next one. Take care.